Hi, everybody. So excited to be, chatting with this amazing leader. This is a podcast for leaders that not only are creating change, because there are many leaders that are great creating change, but leaders that are using their voice. This is a collection of incredible leaders that are generous enough to share their experiences and who they are with us, for everybody to learn, right? We all want to learn how to use our voice. It's something that they don't teach you at school, and it should be taught. And so it's exciting. Thanks for being here, everybody. And today I have an amazing guest. His name is Christian Maldonado, and he is a Latino American, of course, a 200%er, as we call them, 100% Latino and 100% American. He's a comedian. He's a social media influencer, extremely funny, by the way. He's very well known for that. His sharp humor that's being imperative in his leadership role. But more importantly, he's extremely relatable. Like, I feel I'm talking to, even though I'm much older, but I feel like I'm talking to my brother. I feel like I'm talking to my friend from college. He just is so relatable. He explains things to me in a way that I always want to learn more. And so obviously, Christian, your skits, your engaging way of telling story is so important. And he gained popularity through through the platforms of TikTok and YouTube. His comedic style has earned him a massive following. He has over 2.6 million followers on TikTok, 2 million subscribers on YouTube, close to 500,000 followers on Instagram. So he's a big voice. We're so honored, Christian, by the way. Among his biggest accomplishment is being featured in a national influencer campaign during 2024 U.S. elections. So again, his voice turns, opinions and changes opinions to the point where it influences voting. And that's why he was named in this list, right? In the U.S. elections in 2024. Christian, welcome. Please tell us more about it. I wanted to just kind of talk about your public persona, but tell us about you. First of all, thank you for being here. Thanks for accepting more than anything.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. And I love how you said that it feels like you're talking to family when you're talking to me. So that means a lot to me. And thank you for just having this platform in general, starting this podcast to have a safe space for Latinos or leaders, like you said, to be able to communicate and have this space to talk to each other. But I love everything that you said about being able to relate to me, and also feeling comfortable and stuff like that. And that's what I try to do with my content, really, is try to be relatable to the audience and also try to help people out whenever I can. But yeah, I'm actually based out of North Carolina. I was born in Virginia, and I grew up, but I basically moved into North Carolina when I was 2 or 3 years old. And my parents are from El Salvador, is where my mom is from. And then my dad that raised me is from Guatemala. So I have that Central American background as well. So that played a huge part growing up for me. Growing up in North Carolina, having a Central American background.
Wow, that's an incredible upbringing. Like, all these influences. You're not a 200%er. You're a 500%er with so many influences. Christian, you really are a 500%er. You're not a 200%er. I'm sure that your voice is, and probably the reason why you're so relatable, is influenced by the fact that you have so many influences. And I know that being Latino is a big one, but you have the Guatemalan part, you have the El Salvadorian part, you have the Virginia one, right? Which is, again, different, right? Every state has its own culture. Every state has its own situation for Latinos itself. Tell us about it. How do you blend all this into your humor?
Yeah, my wife is Mexican. So, and then North Carolina demographic, the majority of Latinos in North Carolina specifically are Mexican too. So I kind of grew up with having a lot of Mexican friends as well. So I have.
Did you meet her there?
We went to actually intermediate school together. So I was a 4th, 5th grade. She ended up moving away, and then she came back to North Carolina, and then we ended up high school sweethearts.
Did you have a crush on her before?
Oh, actually, I had heard that she had a crush on me, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then she ended up moving away. So I heard this after she moved away. But when she came back, we started talking a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, did you have a crush on me in fourth or fifth grade?" And then that's how it kind of started in there.
I love it. I'm sure she came back all flourished, a young woman, beautiful, maybe not like a little girl that left. So what a lovely story. So again, you have all these different influences, and I cannot even think about your kids. When you have kids, I don't think you have kids right now, do you?
No, not yet. But yeah, it's just definitely played a huge role. It's something that I've always been proud of as well. I think it makes me unique a little bit, being North Carolina, being Central American, not too common, but it's something that I've always represented. And especially now with the platform that I have, I guess, I feel like it's important to represent that part of me, because there wasn't a lot of representation for me personally growing up, seeing, you know, Central Americans on the TV screen. There would be Latinos, but even then they're underrepresented too.
Yes.
And then even less Central Americans at that point.
It's so interesting because we've been measuring media, traditional media, for 8 years because we saw the underrepresentation of Latinos, right? And unfortunately, with a little representation, at least half of it being negative, which is not, the case of us majority Latinos, to be honest with you. Of course, there is some crime and there is some, maybe, as in every community, but the majority of us are people, like good people, right? And so we have been measuring media. And what we found, thanks to people like you, thank you, thank you, thank you, is that starting about 6 to 5 years ago, the audience started going to non-traditional media, which was, of course, YouTube, TikTok, etc. And after talking to the marketing people from TikTok and from other platforms, we realized that we Latinos actually went to those platforms because we were not seeing ourselves reflected. And today, unfortunately, for the traditional media in Hollywood, those platforms that remained without representation are actually down. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there is almost half of the number of shows have been reduced, at least 30%, and most of them are unscripted, which is cheaper kind of content, while YouTube, TikTok, and other platforms are growing tremendously because of us, because of our audience, and because of audience that may not be Latino, but know that we're part of their lives. And so they are looking for Latino content. They're looking for Latinos to be part of their story, right? And so you, without knowing, have really changed the market. Just by creating content that people want to see, both Latinos and non-Latinos, and then having all your millions of followers, and of course, millions and millions of likes and approved, different posts. So yeah, it's amazing how, without even noticing that background of yours, the background that you share with your wife now, is also influencing everything that you're doing positively.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I agree with that. Whenever I try to watch a new show, I always try to see who the characters are. So if there's not like a Latino character in there, I kind of lose interest, or not really interested to watch that show. And I think if they haven't realized it yet, Latinos it's a huge demographic, and there's a huge like missing opportunity for Hollywood or like TV shows to kind of make content that Latinos want to watch, or at least have a Latino character in the series or in the movie or something like that.
Christian, it seems like we should be paying you for saying that, because that's exactly what our reports say. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, exactly what you said is what I do. And I think millions of us do. We look at a show, and if there's no representation of Latinos, then we lose interest, because it's not a realistic representation, right? If you go to shows that happen in Los Angeles, even in North Carolina, but especially in Los Angeles, in Texas, in New York, in Chicago, in Miami, in a lot of different cities, if you don't have Latinos, that's unrealistic, and it looks almost like on purpose, kind of eliminating a whole community that in some of those cities are actually the majority, right?
Yeah.
In cities like LA, I mean, we are majority. There's no way out of that. And so if you don't see yourself reflected, you wonder.
It's not really accurate at that point in time.
Exactly. And as you're saying, we are a big part of the audience. The perfect example is this weekend. The lead was Pedro Pascal.
Yep.
And it was a humongous success. And I can't wait. And I'm sure Pablo can tell us the percent to hear what the percentage of the box office was from Latinos. 30% of the box office of one of the biggest box offices of the year came from us.
That's
and
huge.
Of course, we went because we saw ourselves represented.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it's a great movie. I went to see it on Sunday, and
I'm looking forward to watching that one. I just watched Superman, which was a really good movie too.
Yeah, it was really good.
I love the way Superman, the messaging behind that one. But I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four, since Pedro Pascal's in it, and then that's actually the show that I'm watching right now is The Last of Us on HBO.
Yeah,
Pedro Pascal's in it.
Totally.
If there's a character, at least somebody, I'm gonna watch that show.
Exactly. And in the new season, by the way, of The Last of Us, that I won't tell you much, but there are 3 other characters, Latino characters, which are great.
Yeah, one was on episode 6, I think. So I'm still in the first season.
Yeah. I won't tell you more, but at least people, I think it seems like at least some of the producers, some of the content creators are learning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to put Pedro Pascal as the lead for The Last of Us, for example, one of the biggest shows this year is Andor, right? And again, a Latino with an accent, looks Latino, and it's one of the biggest shows.
I guess that's the other thing too, is whenever they fill those roles, but it's not necessarily they're Latino. They happen to be Latino, but it's not building into the stereotype. It's not like one of those stereotypical roles. It's a lead role that happens to be Latino.
Exactly. Just like you, Christian. You happen to be Latino, and that makes you, in my opinion, better because you have a lot of different influences, but you're not a Latino influencer. You're a mainstream influencer, and people watch you because you're really good. Yeah. And that's what we mean by 200%er or 500%er. You don't need to be one or the other one. Yeah. You're all of them together. And I think that's what we do, right? Like Latinos just are able to cross over and be liked everywhere in the world. This, the success of, the Four Fantastics and Andor and your success is global. You're not limited to a country. You're not limited to a community. It's just global. And I think that's amazing. Okay, but more importantly, I'm sure this is a question that every one of your fans want to know. What inspired you when you started creating content? And then I'm going to ask you, how was it affected by your 500%? But what inspired you to start?
So it was really just for the fun of it that I started. I remember being in high school, and this was back in 2012, and watching a lot of YouTubers make comedic skits. And I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos of all these creators just making comedic skits. And I thought it'd be something fun to eventually do one day, and something that I didn't want to do. But, you can spend a lot of time saying that you want to do something, but not actually go out and do it, which that was basically me in 2012 in high school. But it wasn't until 2020, 2019, when TikTok came around, that I actually got the opportunity to create content and actually put words into action. So that's when I started creating content, but it all started still for the same reason. It was just for the fun of it, just to, it looked like something fun to do. So I ended up making one of my first skits was a voiceover of Cardi B, just a silly random video that I did with my wife. Uh, um, and I also did a couple other skits that were kind of relating to Latinos or like growing up in a Hispanic household and things of that nature. But it was just for the simple joy of creating content that I first started. And I guess it was also, since it was 2020, it was a pandemic that kind of helped out a little bit too at that point in time. Everybody was in quarantine. There wasn't much else to do. So I was at home. We did have our phones. So I spent a lot of time creating content during the pandemic.
Isn't that interesting how most of the leaders that we've spoke to, influencers, started with the pandemic? Like, this was an opportunity, talking about, when you're given lemons, make lemonade. This was an opportunity for people to just, first of all, come up with a different platform and a different way of delivering humor or news or activism. And you guys took it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's the way to make it. That's a pioneer move that gave you everything that you had to do. And people had the time. They needed the entertainment. Content in traditional media was not enough. We had way too much time in our hands.
Yeah.
And we needed to know current things, like, right? We needed to know, like, today there's no paper. There's no toilet paper, right? Or, suddenly milk is, scarce. And it was a way to just, record the times that we were living and informing. And that was an incredible opportunity that you took, which is amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I think a lot of creators started that way during the pandemic. And then, like you said, and I think the app in general has evolved over time as well. It was, there's still, you can still make silly videos on there, but I remember it being more of a voiceover app where you would just kind of lip sync to music or lip sync to certain sounds. And it's kind of evolved to what it is today, where you can literally, if you have a passion for something, you can make content around that passion, whether it's cooking or being outdoors. You can make lifestyle content, comedic content. So it's evolved dramatically.
Yeah, it's opened up to everything that you may want, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah, that is true. There is, yes, I do agree. There's the downside to the algorithm.
Haters.
Sometimes you just see what you want to see. You can't really see both sides, which is unfortunate sometimes with misinformation.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, you're right. Misinformation and then haters, right? It's just people that just have very strong opinions against certain other people's. And
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. So I know that your following is very diverse, which is great. But I do know also that you make a lot of content that speak directly to first generation and this immigrant experiences, right? So how do you do it so that you make it relatable for everybody?
So that's how I started. Those are the videos that I started making content with. And it was the relatable Hispanic skits growing up in a Latino household, growing up in a Hispanic household. I did skits surrounding just random things, for example, having the oven filled with pots and pans. It's something that a lot of Latinos can relate to. Also, not using the dishwasher because you use it for storage. My mom, for example, still doesn't use the dishwasher to this day. So it's just a lot of different. I was just trying to be relatable, and there was a lot of Latino creators coming up around the same time. So it was kind of nice seeing everybody grow at the same time too, and kind of elevate with each other.
Yes, feeding each other into new ideas and new possibilities. And you guys get along, most of you get along really well.
Yeah, no, I love the Latino community on TikTok, and I've had a chance to meet a lot of them in person already too. So it's always good to talk to them. It's we're spread out across the whole country, so it's kind of difficult to meet up with each other sometimes. It's mainly the events that we see each other, but yeah, it's always good to talk to them and talk about content, but also talk about life too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's super important because I got to say, in traditional Hollywood, Latinos don't really get together that much. It's everybody's working in their own, field, and unfortunately, there's not enough. You guys are much more in numbers, which makes it easier. But I think the way you're growing into this, because you all are so young, the way you're growing into this is so smart. Working together, more or less. This obviously there's the differences in parties and ideas, and we know there is always the political debate, but in general, you guys really are not even competing with each other. You're kind of making each other better because everybody in their own style had a space. And that's really, really important. And I want to congratulate you. And, we one of the latest reports that we've done is Latino youth. And we did it with this company called Kantar, which is the largest market research company of consumer products. And so they were very interested in knowing who are Latinos, because we are seeing you guys excelling much faster than our generation, right? Much bigger, in a much bigger way, in a much smarter way. And we found that, a lot of it has to do with being assertive, being unapologetic, being smart about supporting efforts, not only with your voice or with your vote, but also with your pocket, with your purse. It's super, super smart. And so one of the things that you do is you work together. You don't compete. You know that the pie is not one size. You know that each one of you can make it bigger, and everybody benefits from it. And I really encourage you to continue thinking that way, because that is the key to create an effort that is synergetic, right, with all of you. And that has to do also with, being Latino, I would say, just because
that is true.
you family oriented, culturally oriented. We are not a race in a lot of different ways. We are exactly what you're saying. We're a culture that shares habits, that shares values, that shares power, that shares unity in some ways. So no, I really encourage you to continue doing that. I have a question for you about this part of your Latino content. Do you get comments in? So, what's the percentage of comments in Spanish, and what's the percentage of comments in English that you get?
So the majority is in English, and occasionally it will be in Spanish. So, but there was also a different type of skit content that I would make, and it would be these music skits where I would act like the artists, and kind of in my head, this is how the song was created, and I'll do it in a comedic way. But all those songs are in Spanish, so like there were reggaeton songs, pop songs, and a lot of those comments would be in Spanish. So it was still, yeah. So it'd be more Spanish in those types of videos. But I think a lot of my audience is bilingual though. So some of you, there'll be some bilingual comments at the same time too. So Spanish and English.
Yeah, that's what I noticed when I saw because I know that you do English posting mostly, but I saw people just kind of, obviously they're bilingual and they like to bring in the Spanish, and of course they're heard because you listen to them and you reply. So yeah, that it's so interesting. That's, imagine, in every country in the world except in the United States, to have a second language is a gift, right?
Yep.
They pay you more when you have a second language. Sometimes in the United States that doesn't happen, but we all know that having a second, third, fourth language is always a gift. And I see your followers and your the people that comment, they bring in Spanish and English.
Yeah.
I can tell. So, Christian, this is something that I found really exciting when I heard about it. You've been featured by TikTok as part of the Creator Spotlight series. And you also were recently invited to the Superman movie fan event in London, talking about crossing over. And that's what I say. You may do things about immigrants, but you cross over to everything, right? Tell us about it. Tell us about it, and then tell us, what did it mean to you when you knew that you were selected to do this?
Yeah. So with the TikTok being featured on the TikTok Creator Spotlight series, and then also I was a part of a Latino creator program through TikTok. And then I was also selected as I guess a Latino breakthrough creator as well a few years ago. But it was validating. It was a validating experience, and it was
Course.
something that I had been working towards, and I kind of manifested to a little bit. They had done it for a couple of years, and then I think it was in 2021 or 2022 that I was like, hopefully I'll be a part of that list this year. So I worked hard towards it, and I ended up being selected as one of those creators. But it meant a lot because TikTok is still my biggest platform and has been one of my favorite platforms to post on. That's how I started. So getting that validation from TikTok meant a lot to me. It just meant that I was going in the right direction. And I guess it's something that I've always done is try to create content that I personally want to do and not maybe stick to one niche. So I've done a lot of content based on like Latino music, like reggaeton songs, skits like that. But I also do growing up in a Hispanic household, growing up in a Latino household. Then I also do the office skits and then the immigration skit. So it's just all these different things, which is all of my interests. I'll make content based off of those things. And I think that's helped me out dramatically as well. I've been invited to a few years ago or a couple years ago to the Latin billboards because of my music skits.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so I ended up going recently to the Superman event in London.
Tell us about that.
So that was an amazing experience too. Actually, that was my first time going to outside of the country to promote a movie. So that was definitely a different experience, and it was super fun because it was a group of international creators that came together to promote the movie. So I had never been in that setting. I usually do things inside of the U.S., but this was my first time out in London and also being with a group of international creators. So it was cool to meet them and then also get to know them. I met a lot of the comedic content creators, and they're from different countries. They do different kinds of comedy, so
Yeah.
it was really cool to see.
How cool is that?
But yeah,
Are you in touch with them still?
I ended up following them on Instagram, so I can see their videos now. So I'll double tap like their videos too. So I do that.
Exactly.
So
You know what I find? I lived in Europe 4 years, and I was born and raised in Mexico, but I lived in Europe 4 years because I did my master's and then I worked there. And I am always amazed of how much they love Latinos in Europe. They just love us, right? And especially in a way, it's a contrast with some parts of the American community that don't have that, right? And I don't want to get political, but you know what I mean, and probably the audience knows what we mean, which is certain rejection. Not to go deeper because I know I can go deeper into it, but my point is, that's the reason why, our content and our singers, right, cross over so dramatically everywhere else because we really are liked in the world.
yeah,
The Latino culture is just admired. It is almost like venerated, I would say. Like it's a, oh my God, the Mayan culture and the Mexican food and the Incas and the Central American jungles. And, like there's so much admiration for Latin America. And I don't know if you were able to notice it when you were there, but yeah, it's almost like you want to go there because it's so much easier to be popular, to make everything that you are popular. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Compared to what happens specifically in this country, but even in China, in Australia, in Southeast Asia. I mean, they just love Latinos. It's just the very exotic, beautiful. Honestly, we're beautiful, but we're great.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I don't know if you noticed it, but the more you go to international events, the more you'll notice it, and you'll remember what I tell you because it's also a great check on a great reality check on who we are
yeah.
because stereotypes here in America are in a lot of different ways gaslighting.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how our culture is loved around the rest of the world. But I think, it's every culture too. Just I guess it's a blessing to travel in general. But once you go out of the country and see how other countries treat their people. It's interesting to see. I think I was talking to somebody that was from London, from the UK, and they were saying one of the differences between London and the US is that although they have, different races in London, they all unite under being the fact that they're all British. They're all, they're all from the UK, as opposed to the US. It's more of a, okay, well, you're African American, you're Latino American. They kind of divide the way that they label Americans. Whereas in the UK, they're all British, even though they have different skin colors. They're all united under that. That was a very interesting thing to hear.
Totally. That was so shocking to me when I moved to the United States. I remember I was at a gathering, and an Anglo woman was making a comment. She was lovely, by the way. I don't think she meant anything wrong, but I remember her saying something like, "Well, Valdez is not an American name." And I was like, "What? Wait, what?" The Valdez family was in the United States before it was the United States. It came, they arrived in 1570 in New Mexico. They settled down, they intermarried with indigenous people, and that's the Valdez family, from the United States. So, and I actually told her, I think they are more American than you, just because, that's important. She was a little shocked. And again, she didn't mean anything wrong, but in her mind, if, she was British and blonde blue eyes, she was American and everything else was not. And you're right, that doesn't happen even in countries like like England, that has so much immigration from India and from, from South Africa and from different countries. So yeah, I agree. It's I don't want to get political, but
No, you're fine. I just wrote that down. That's a good skit idea. That's my type of. You just gave me an idea. You're gonna see that video come out soon too.
I love that. Okay, great.
No,
I
yeah,
love it.
that reminds me. Yeah, because I mean, it'll just be random things that they say sometimes. It'll be like, oh, well, your English is really good. Like, where did you learn that? Like, I was born in the U.S., so I would hope my English is good. I've been talking it my whole life.
Yeah,
But just things like
exactly.
that. But yeah,
Yeah, that
I
has happened
definitely
to
know what you're
me.
talking about.
And you know what? I would understand it if it happened to me because I'm an immigrant and I have an accent and I look Latina, but it happens to everybody
Yeah.
that has a Latino last name or that is Latino. People like you that were born here, and people, places where, people have been for 500 years and they still are asked, when did they arrive? So, yeah, I agree. And that leads me to my next question, because you balanced so well the social commentary with no anger. It's just humor. Like, it's easy to digest the way you put it because there is no anger or aggression. There is even no resentment. It's just funny. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I guess that's one of my main goals when it comes to making those types of videos. My main goal is to educate, but I also wanted to reach a really big audience. So I figured out that the way to do that is to make it in an easy to understand way and a comedic way, I guess you can say. So I try to mix them both, but with the intention to try to educate people. And it's one of my favorite things to do is to blend humor, but with also facts. So also, I'm not trying to be angry, or I'm not trying to, uh, I guess, be resentful towards a certain group of people. I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to educate people with facts. And if people don't like facts, then I can't really do much about it. But it's also, a lot of people don't know sometimes. It'll be a situation where they're misinformed about a certain topic. So, and they're not aware of the situation. For example, when it comes to undocumented immigrants, so a lot of people think that they don't pay taxes, but the truth is that they pay $100 billion in taxes a year, and it's just a matter of them not knowing. And then I'll get questions in the comments, well, how are they paying taxes if they don't have a social security number? Well, the IRS created ITINs, individual taxpayer identification numbers, so they can pay taxes. and then I'll educate them that way. So it's not it's me trying to educate people that may be misinformed, and doing it in a comedic way so they don't get offended too.
Absolutely. And you know what? As you're explaining that, and I really appreciate how you explained it, you made me realize that I think another one of the greatest things that your generation has done is help us all in the Latino community find the way that the way that works for us to do activism. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but I believe since I came to this country 30 years ago, I've seen Latinos trying to find the way to be more effective. And sometimes we copy other communities, right? Because it works for them. Sometimes we've tried emulating efforts or organizations or ways to call on the attention for certain issues, and it hasn't worked because it hasn't been our own way of doing things, and because we're so specific and we are not like any other community. I feel like my generation hasn't found it, but I do. You made me realize that you guys are helping us to find it, which is being successfully a voice, but in your own way. Not angry, not aggressive, not breaking windows, but in the fun, peaceful, harmonious way that we actually like. And we feel comfortable doing it. And of course, laughing, because we love to laugh, right? Um, and so I don't want to put so much responsibility in you, but know that you really are helping us all in the community to find the ways where our voices become powerful. And you've said it all through this interview. You said it at the beginning when you said, if you see a movie that doesn't represent, then you lose interest, or a show that doesn't represent. That's a voice. That's a way of doing activism. That's a way of showing what you're going to support and not. And so people that want your dollars and your support need to do it your way. If not, they won't get it, right? Also, the way you balance this, like you're saying, I want to educate. I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to insult. I don't want to shame. But I want to create. I think all these ways that you are very naturally and spontaneously developing for yourself and then teaching us all are really helping us find the best advocacy system and the best tools for us. So I don't want to put responsibility on you, but do you feel some responsibility? Like,
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like not so much, because I know that I'm playing a small part. I just have to do my part. There's only so much that I can do, and there's so many different ways that people can advocate on their platform. And it's like you said, you just have to do it in your own way, and that might look different for somebody else. For me, it's by doing skits, because that's what I do, comedic skits. So I'll try to educate, incorporate facts into my comedic skits. But for other people, it might be doing a cooking video and then just doing a voiceover. I saw one done really well where they were doing chilaquiles, and then midway they brought up, what's going on in LA and how immigration is impacting the community. So that was done very well. And for other people, it might be through just sharing news stories or just informing people that way, and then not really a comedic aspect at all. But I feel like it's us together is playing a huge role, and it's just up to the whole community to do their small part. And I feel like I'm just doing, my small part. So it's not too much pressure. But I do feel like I do have that responsibility to, at least at the very minimum, use my platform, since I do have a platform, to advocate for the community that basically brought me to where I am today, that helped me get to where I am today.
and you do it incredibly responsible, Christian. I mean, it's every one of I've seen probably all of your posts, and every one of them is so brilliant and fun and responsible. Like, I think people can overexert their voice, and I just think you do it so well. I'm just honestly, not because you're here, but I do think you do it incredibly well. So moving forward, do you see yourself continuing to work on social media? Do you aspire to embark on other ventures? Would you ever consider traditional entertainment? What's your view?
Yeah, so for right now, I'm definitely going to continue doing social media. I feel like you could always continue with the way that the landscape is shaping out. It seems like it just growing and growing, and more people are getting onto social media as opposed to the traditional,
Exactly.
networks on TV or cable TV. So I feel like it's just going to keep growing. So I definitely want to stay on social media, but also do want to maybe venture out a little bit too, see what other opportunities are out there as well, whether that be I don't know, acting or something else, maybe something business related at the same time too, uh, creating a business or some form of that.
Yeah, maybe organizing shows or, being a producer in some ways.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that if there's a way, if anything can restart or reinvigorate traditional media, is you guys. Honestly, I think, maybe with a little different format, whatever, but I don't see traditional media ever going back except if they actually incorporate everything that you guys have produced and developed.
Yeah.
In traditional media, where you've been free, where you've had the platform to do whatever you want with, and when you've proven actually your success. Because how many shows fail, right? That's because one producer decided to do it, and then there's millions of dollars wasted just because he didn't. But you guys have proven success. That's the incredible part. And so there's no other way forward, in my opinion, except following what you guys have been doing. Tell me something. I laugh because when we started, being in touch with all of you guys and influencers, etc., we were amazed at the way you create wealth, which is extremely important, by the way. I think there is no way to prosper in this world except creating wealth, right? And you guys are very young and you're already creating, a source of income, which is extremely important. One part of it, there's many ways you guys are creating it, and you deserve it, by the way. But one part of it is brands, right?
Yeah.
Affiliating with brands, etc. Tell us a little bit about what's fun about it, and then maybe the challenges. And just that would be probably for people that are thinking, like younger people that may be thinking about, getting into the market, etc. What's good about it, and what is challenging?
So I went to school for business marketing and I was in the business school. So I kind of always like the business dynamics of creating content. So I've been self-managed this whole time. So whenever a brand deal does come in, I've been the one to negotiate the deal. And I actually enjoy that part of the whole social media world too. But I know there's a lot of people that don't like that aspect and end up getting managers and stuff like that, which is good too. If you don't like dealing with that, definitely have somebody help you out when it comes to getting brand deals. But I guess the hard part is getting those brands to reach out to you. But what I found that's helped is creating content around different things and also maybe including those brands before they even reach out to you and they'll start to notice. So with music, for example, I've had a couple of music sponsorships or brand deals, but that's because I was making skits around songs. So I've done like sports content as well. So I've had some brands reach out when it comes to like sports and stuff like that too. But I feel like if with anything, maybe you enjoy running, just show the Nike brand or show what kind of shoes what kind of running shoes you have, and then actually show those brands in your videos, and maybe they see the video, they come across it, they'll reach out and they want to do a brand partnership with you. So I feel like it's a balance, just showing what you're interested in and also kind of incorporating those brands beforehand into your content. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
they might be able to reach out that way too.
It's like selling, right? Like
Yeah.
selling your space in some ways. Yeah, yeah.
Or authentic,
Authentically, exactly. So you are an entrepreneur in a lot of
a
different.
little bit, I guess. I'd say.
Yeah, you are, because you say you like to actually handle that part of your business. You're right. I know a lot of influencers that have a manager,
Yeah.
but you seem to actually really like doing it yourself, which is great because you're skipping the middleman, right? Which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, Chris.
That's kind of like what kind of made me go into go 100% into creating content too. I was working which has kind of helped me out a little bit too, my work experience. I've been in a healthy work environment, but I've also seen a toxic work environment as well. Not because of the people, but mainly because of the hours that I was working and the amount of days that I was working too. So I've seen both sides. So just with that experience, I kind of went all in with creating content because I did not like working
In an office.
in an office. Yeah. And then the amount of hours, like 60 hours a week type of thing, and on the weekends sometimes too. So, but that helped out with the ideas too at the same time. So it worked out.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure. And that's amazing. Again, you guys are developing a new way of doing things. That's incredible. You're developing new businesses, and that's the part of the democratized entertainment of these new platforms that is so fabulous. A little bit of what happened with, Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music, where people started just creating content, and when they were liked, they became huge global hits. They didn't need a record label. You guys are doing the same in terms of content or video content, which is so great. I love it. If you had to give an advice to young Latinas and Latinos seeking to make a career like yours, what would be your advice? Give me 2 things that you would advise somebody that is younger than you.
So I would say that first, I would say we need more Latino and Latino representation. So
Yes,
definitely pursue, creating a social media job, creating content. But the biggest keys I would say is to be consistent and, upload content, but also at the same time, start. A lot of people spend a lot of time thinking, what kind of content should I make? Should I do this? What time should I post? And they don't spend time actually creating the content. So my biggest advice would be to just simply start, because once you start posting videos, uploading videos, that's when you start learning, well, this worked better than this other video that I did. And then you also learn, well, I can edit something this way as opposed to this way. And then you end up figuring out what works for your audience when you actually start creating content. So your first videos might not perform as well, but that experience adding up helps out tremendously.
Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. You're absolutely right. You said consistency, and I would add to the consistency discipline. Like, I see you're very disciplined. And then, creating much content so that you learn. The more you post, and sometimes, as I said, the more you fail, right?
Yeah.
Is the more you learn.
Exactly.
And so just keep going and give it a try, and know that if you fail sometimes, that doesn't mean you're bad.
That's the motivation. That's how I've grown too. So I've been learning this whole time. I'm still learning to this day. I'm seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Well, you keep growing, so yes, I can tell. Even though it looks to me like you're extremely polished, you keep growing. So I'm sure you keep learning, right?
Yep.
You keep kind of accumulating more fans and getting more people to see your content. Christian, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for giving us your time, your wisdom, your young wisdom, your experience. Please keep doing this. The same as you're telling younger, Latinos that want to try this. I tell you, please grow. Please keep growing. You're amazing. We need you to become everything that you can be. You already have become so much, but we need you strong, 500%er, and we need you to keep illustrating all these points that you make for us in a fun way.
Thank you, Ana, for having this platform, being able to conversate right now. I love the conversation.